Okay, so the video is going to be paused and you're going to be asked question number 1. Identify which trig ratio should be used to solve for the unknown value. So the unknown value here is theta, and you're being asked, would we use sine, cos, or tan? Okay, answer that question, and then the video will continue. All right, so in this case, the idea is that in order to decide, we identify our angle, which we have. We need to identify the information that's provided. The idea of adding your hypotenuse in every case opposite the 90-degree angle is not a bad idea because that's always constant. That's always going to be the case. In this case here, in relation to the angle theta, 12 centimeters is the opposite value, and the 10 centimeters is beside it. It's the adjacent value. So we have to ask ourselves, using SOHCAHTOA, in relation to that angle, the information that's provided is the adjacent and the opposite, in which case we're looking at the value tan. So we would say tan theta is equal to the opposite over adjacent, or in this case, 12 over 10. Okay, I complete the same thing with question 2. Which of the trig ratios, sine, cos, or tan, would you use to solve for x? Okay, now that you've given your answer, let's see if you're correct. The angle of interest is the 30 degrees. In relation to 90 degrees, the hypotenuse is always opposite the 90. And then the other piece of information that's provided is the 12, and that is opposite. So in this case, we have information about an opposite and a hypotenuse. Opposite and hypotenuse is sine, so that tells me that sine theta is equal to my opposite, 12 over my h, which is x. So that's how I would, and sine theta, sorry, that's going to be sine of 30 degrees. Whoops. So we're just being asked which trig ratio we would use. We're not actually being asked to solve this. Sine of 30. Number 3, okay, answer the question, sine, cos, or tan. And now that you've provided your answer, we would identify again in relation to this angle. Opposite the 90 degrees, we have our hypotenuse. And in relation to 50 degrees, this is our adjacent angle. So adjacent and hypotenuse is the cos, ka. So we're going to say that cos of 50 is equal to my adjacent over my hypotenuse. And my adjacent value is my x over 17. Right? So that would allow me to solve for x. All right, last question. Identify which trig function I would use to solve for the unknown value. And then in this case, there's 2 unknown values, theta and x, but which cos function would be used? Okay, so again, we will assume that this is our 90 degrees, in which case the hypotenuse is opposite the 90 degrees. In relation to this angle, the 17 provided is the opposite, and the x is the adjacent. So adjacent and opposite is the information that we've got. So in relation to cos theta, in relation to angle theta, opposite and adjacent, that's the TOA tan. So I could say tan theta is equal to my opposite 17 over my adjacent x. Okay, so that's a little bit of a review before we move on to our next lesson.